Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jenny Montgomery. Earth Day is coming up, and it is a perfect time to think about our impact on the planet. Mark Alberton will tell us about the CSRA's first March for Science a little later. Also, Symphony Orchestra Augusta has a lot going on in the next couple of weeks, and Catherine Murray is here to tell us about the next Pops concert and the 10th annual golf tournament and spring soiree. Some exciting news there. And now, if you love to cozy up with a good book, today's show is for you. We are going to talk about Southern fiction writers. Augusta firefighter turned novelist Brian Panowich had a lot of success with his first novel, Bull Mountain. He's joining us in a moment. But first, a popular writer whose books are top picks in literary circles and book clubs alike, Karen White, launched her most recent book tour last week, and her second stop was right here in the Garden City. The best-selling author currently writes what she refers to as grit-lit Southern women's fiction, and dozens of her fans had a memorable luncheon with her last week at the book launch for The Night the Lights Went Out, her 23rd novel, right here in the Garden City. The Night the Lights Went Out was released just last week by Berkeley Publishing. Take a look now at some of the other titles that have landed Karen on top of the New York Times and USA Today bestseller lists, including The Time Between, The House on Trad Street, Flight Patterns, The Memory of Water, The Sound of Glass, The Guests on South Battery, which is part of the Trad Street series of mysteries set in Charleston, South Carolina. 23 books since 2000. Back now to last week's book launch and luncheon at Abel Brown Southern Kitchen and Oyster Bar in Surrey Center. Karen White fans enjoyed a wonderful luncheon, signed copies of her new book, and simply spending time meeting and talking with White, who charmed the audience with her entertaining stories.
When my husband was transferred to Atlanta, now I'm a Southerner. My parents are both from Mississippi, and our whole family is from the South, but I married a Yankee. Bless his heart. Come to two different schools because they're 21 months apart. As a matter of fact, does everybody remember the storm of the century in March of 1993? My son was born 9 months later.
Book The Night the Lights Went Out at stores or online, and if you hurry downtown to the Book Tavern on Broad Street, you still might be able to purchase a signed copy from David Hutchinson, who was another sponsor of the luncheon with Karen last week. Karen and I taped a wonderful interview here on the JENNIE set following her book launch last week, and I am heartbroken to tell you that a technical glitch prevented our chat from recording properly, but we're working on rescheduling her, and we'll bring you the segment as soon as we do. Up next on JENNIE, Bull Mountain is the first novel for Brian Panowich, an Augusta firefighter with a gift for words. So how was he discovered? We'll hear the story behind Bull Mountain from the writer himself right after this quick break. Welcome back, everyone. A Columbia County firefighter is now a rising star in the literary world. His wife inspired him to write a book, while his co-workers pushed him to make it great, and he did. Brian Panowich, in his own words now, about the unlikely journey from firefighter to published author.
What happened to me doesn't happen to everybody. It doesn't happen to hardly anybody. This is where I wrote the book, right here. I got an overwhelming hell yeah, and when that happens at this table, you're on to something. So this table is very important. It's almost like the judge, the jury, and the executioner of the day.
He was passionate about it as he wrote it. You know, I think he felt like he was inside the story, and you could see it.
Honey, we got a book deal, and she was like, great, because we really need the new sofa. And that was it. All this book stuff ended right now today. This was the end of it. Then I always have that to be able to show my son when he grows up. I accomplished something.
Those clips were from a wonderful story my former colleague Chris Kane did when Bull Mountain was released in 2015. And Brian, we are so happy to have you here with us today.
Thank you,
Welcome
Jenny.
to the JENNIE Show. You know, recently you were honored with the Porter Fleming Awards.
That's right.
What a big deal.
Yeah, I was the first individual in quite a long time to receive it. Organizations have received it, but I, as an individual, it was pretty overwhelming.
Your story is just so intriguing. You're a firefighter. You're a father of 4.
Correct.
And you had this story that was just dying to come out. How did this happen?
Well, I had a place I wanted to write about, and the story just came to me one day on my mountain bike, and it just popped into my head. And by the time I had gotten from the canal back to my truck, I had this idea for a story, but I never thought I'd write it. I never had any idea that I would write it down as a novel.
Oh, really? Okay.
No, I never had any intention to be a novelist. I was writing short stories at the firehouse as a way to, I don't know, have some type of creative outlet. Because you see a lot of things at the firehouse that you want to either forget or don't want to bring home with you, and so that was my escapism, was to do that. Until I wrote a story that an agent in New York read, because he kept up with all these online, publishers that were running these cool little websites out of their basements and looking for new talent. And I got a call from an agent, and the agent asked me if I'd ever thought about writing a novel, and I said no. And he said, well, if you ever do, give me a call. So I went home and wrote one, and I based it on where my wife is from, or essentially where my wife is from, and a couple of the facts and things that I had heard from her family members and from people who lived there about Georgia's entrenchment and moonshining back in the day after post-prohibition, and boom, the story was born. And I sent it to the agent, and he took me on as a client, and he sold it to the biggest publisher in the world as a 2-book deal, and it went on to win the International Thrillers Award. It was nominated for the Boucher Con Award, the Anthony, the Barry Award. I was in LA for the LA Times Book Prize, sitting next to Don Winslow and Marcia Clark. It was insane.
Did you just
Insane.
feel like, I can't believe this is my life?
I still do, Jenny.
Yeah.
I still do.
Well, you also are a father, an involved father, and you've got creative kids, one of whom is also a writer.
Yeah, my 12-year-old daughter, thanks to Dawn Jeffers and her Horizons class, took a trip to the Biltmore while she was in 5th grade last year, and she wrote an article and submitted some art, and my 12-year-old daughter is a accomplished author. Took me until I was 45. She did it by age 12.
Well, how do you follow up Bull Mountain? You said you've submitted your second novel.
My second novel is done and turned in. It's called Like Lions, and it will be out June of next year. I'm currently in the process of writing a third one, Year of the Rooster, which starts a brand new, Like Lions is connected to the universe of Bull Mountain, but this new one starts a brand new, hopefully the beginning of a series about a GBI agent or a semi-retired GBI agent named Dane Kirby who gets in trouble quite a bit. And gets dragged back into the life that he's trying so desperately to get away from. Yeah.
Well, now I have to ask you this. Are you still writing at that table? Does that table still belong to you?
No, actually, I can't write anymore. My whole process has changed now because of this. I actually have the time now to write in my house. My children are a year older, and so they know that this is what Dad does, and so they kind of step back and they let me do it.
And real quickly before we go, you've been real involved with philanthropic work and with volunteer work, I guess, with Safe Homes.
Safe Homes, very dear to my heart, and I've never been able to do anything for them as a fireman or as just a guy that lives in Augusta, but with this newfound notoriety, I was able to get involved with them, and I raised over $15,000 for them since I've had this happen to me. I figure, Jenny, if I don't push it towards something else, then I don't deserve it.
I think that's wonderful what you're doing, Brian.
Thank you.
It's great, and I appreciate the heart that you have for women.
Thank you.
I think that's really neat. You're an awesome fella. Good luck to you, and thank you for your time today.
Thanks for having me.
Coming up next on Jenny, Earth Day events are happening around the world this weekend. A big march is set for the nation's capital. We'll tell you how to take part here in the CSRA. Don't go away.